Welcome to the first Sifted Talks of the year in partnership with Notion. I'm delighted to say that for the next hour, we're going to be talking about how AI is reshaping workflows across the companies of the panelists that we have joining us today. And they are Marc Wiseler, Head of Solutions Engineering at Notion, Sam Beek, Chief Product Officer at Veed, Oana Jinga, Co-Founder and Chief Commercial and Product Officer at Dexory, and Gordan Stuart, SVP of Product at Sage. So for the next hour, I also want to bring in you guys to the conversation, everyone who's listening. You'll see a Q&A function button on your screens. So please ask questions as they come up during the conversation, and I'll pick the best ones out to ask the panelists. You can mark up and down questions as well to let me know which ones you want me to answer more than others. And yeah, I will pick them up throughout. There won't be a Q&A section at the end of the talks. I think it works better that way for all of us. So to kick us off, I'm going to do around the room with quite a soft opener, which is, what is the most consequential decision an AI system is involved in at your company today? I just want to get a sense of how deeply you're trusting these systems with decision making at your companies. Gordan, I'm going to come to you first for this. What is the most consequential decision an AI system is making at your company today?
No, thanks very much, Tom, and really appreciate being able to come and chat to you and all the guests today. I think probably one of the biggest decisions we made, we've got about 3,500 engineers at Sage, is, as the emergence of a lot of these tools has happened over the last couple of years, rather than trying to dip our toe in the water with kind of AI pair programming tools, we enabled all of our engineers to have the capability and capacity to kind of use AI. Obviously, we did the usual checks and balances that a FTSE 100 company has to do, but we wanted to make sure that all our engineers were enabled as fast as possible to kind of use and test these tools. And what we've seen is some great developments in terms of the efficiency, not only of our kind of output, but also being able to do things we probably would have taken 6 months before. We can now test and learn over hours and days. And I think that has been the enabler to then using that internally to then go and put it into our external customer facing products has given our engineers and our leadership a lot of confidence. So that decision a couple of years ago I think has been the benchmark of all the success and output we've been able to create, like I said, over the last 12 to 18 months.
Marc, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Zod, for having us. I think, directly to your question, I don't think there is huge major decisions that are consequential that are fully made by AI, but AI is most certainly supporting the big decisions with meeting recordings, by analyzing data, all the little decisions that lead up to the big decision. The big consequential decisions are certainly supported by AI. So we do need a human in the loop when we make the really big consequential decisions, but AI supports those humans to make those decisions faster and make better decisions. Then I would say kind of a second part of the answer, we do use AI to make hundreds of micro decisions every day. So which support engineer sees a bug at 2 a.m. in the morning, gets woken up to fix something, who can answer a question best on my team, who's going to be the solutions engineer or solutions consultant that's assigned to a new request. All of those decisions absolutely are made by AI, and I think that allows leaders in a business to focus on those consequential decisions then.
And Oana, what about Dexory?
Yeah, and I was gonna give a response just around like what Marc said as well, because we make a lot of little decisions every day and also bigger decisions supported by AI in the sense of how we capture data information, like what drives kind of that decision making. But if I were to kind of choose one area where we do allow AI to actually make decisions for ourselves, is actually to an extent in customer responses. And for us, that is a very, very big area, because from our perspective, and I'm pretty sure like a lot of people on the call as well, our relationship with our customer is probably the most important thing that matters to the company. So we've kind of used a number of tools there in order to expedite response time. And therefore kind of make sure that the customer knows that we picked something up and somebody is looking at it. Of course, after that, you have a whole kind of team looking at the resolution and like what actually is needed to be done. But at least from that kind of first response and reaction, we kind of brought that in. And again, especially from my side as a founder and also like a chief commercial officer, being super precious about that customer relationship, it was a pretty big deal to let go of that kind of human first approach.
And how about you, Sam?
Thanks, Tom, for having me. So I think AI is often used in many of our company's decisions, but I think one of the most consequential ones is actually has to do with our customers' content. So people use Veed to create videos online, and they can generate videos with Veed, and actually AI will then figure out what shots to use, what script to use, everything. So I feel like that is quite consequential because that's actually the stuff that our customers walk away with when they leave the platform. A video made for them, which we haven't really touched ourselves.
So I want to go into a little bit in terms of how individual departments are maybe being affected, what's actually being used, and what workflows are being introduced in the last 12 to 18 months. Gordan, I want to pick up on something you said, the sort of thing that like things that would have taken maybe 6 months now taking hours and days. Can you take us into like the sort of jobs you mean by that? Like what departments are being affected? Like what is the actual process and what is happening when you say that?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. And obviously, I'll try not to share any kind of company secrets here. But no, I think what we're really seeing, as a software company who's constantly looking to evolve our products, is constantly looking to bring those enhanced workflows, those automated workflows to our customers. What we've really seen from our engineering department is the ability to, when we've got a new idea, rather than having to have, a commit of a squad for, like I was saying, 3 to 6 months to go and deliver something, that where we've seen it being most effective is where we've got domain experts who, for example, know payroll and have been working in that domain for 20 years, being able to kind of use especially kind of AI pair programming tools to be able to create a prototype of something and then to be able to test around that. That's where we've seen a significant acceleration in terms of this ideation. And as I said, what that's allowed us to do is test things and actually put plenty of things in the bin, which aren't the right thing to do, but also then take things forward. Then we can advance on with the rest of the engineering teams. But I think one of the key things that we've seen is obviously the AI doesn't act alone, and it needs that domain expertise because there's still plenty of areas where, whilst there's a generic view around what payroll is a very localized piece. Legislation in different countries is extremely different due to all the different rules. And actually, it's when you link up the domain expertise of our engineers, who know probably as much about payroll as the kind of local government standards or possibly even more, to be able to link that up with the pace of execution of AI tools has been exceptional in terms of our ability to test and learn, and then ultimately get features and functionality out to end customers who are able to then use it. So we're seeing it being very, very effective, but it's definitely in the R&D space, definitely in the true research and development, rather than in the kind of day-to-day coding that we're seeing the difference.
So I want to. I think there can be pressure, right, to use these tools. There can be pressure from the board, pressure from senior leadership to use AI in your workflows, have an impact. And I think there can be a tendency, I guess, to maybe rush into things. And I think I want to pick up on something you said there, like around testing things and knowing when to put something in the bin. Like I think that's such a good point to get across because there are times you're going to use this technology where actually prototype you developed isn't actually the thing that you need to move forward. So take us inside that process. Like how does that happen? And I guess how do you as a leader in the team communicate that like it is okay if some of this stuff doesn't work?
Yeah, no, but I think it's allowing the space because, like I said, when you're in a FTSE 100 company, you're obviously always thinking about not only the technical components, what this means for a customer, but ultimately what's the kind of commercial element in terms of not only the cost but also end kind of revenue. And what this does, it takes away that kind of cost pressure of, as I was saying before, if you have to invest an entire Scrum team for several weeks or months to go and test something, that's a big investment, and there's an opportunity cost of kind of where else you can go. But what this has allowed us to do is, with a specific group of engineers, be able to say, okay, actually, this is something we're interested in. Go and test it with that leadership oversight. So with my kind of peers in the organization, you can make that decision to go and test something, and then actually, not have a deep impact from a commercial perspective about the investment that's being made. And it's more a cultural thing that we're, trying to instill, which is giving those key individuals within the team that freedom to go and do that alongside, all of the stuff that we were doing anyway before some of these tools were available around, what we did with kind of hackathons and, different kind of engagement sessions. But really, it's one of the key things that we found is, we've got some trusted senior engineers and architects who we know can kind of test and learn on these pieces. And I think it's that natural interaction that we have anyway. It's not a huge process that's changed, and the level of accountability that we've got as a leadership team to go and test those things is just enhanced by having these tools available.
Marc, does that resonate with you as well? Help us understand how at Notion you give teams the trust to go away and use these technologies. Is it everyone can use them? Do you have individual teams who work on stuff and R&D and prototyping more than others? Help us understand how that works, I guess, from the perspective of your dev team that you brought up earlier.
Yeah, I would say it's impossible to force and push. You know, you have to let people ease into it, and the best way of doing that, I guess, would really be to share the success. And I think as we quickly move away from, you know, to just the question answer type of AI that we all know, into more of an agent based piece. The huge benefit of that is that we can have agents that a person that wants to use it sets up, and everyone else gets the benefit of it. So it's not me having to use it, but somebody else in the organization can actually help me get started if I'm a little scared of the technology, or if I don't have time to learn. You know, we can very quickly go into having these agents be set up by those that want to experiment, and it only takes 5%, 10% of an organization that's curious. At a company like Notion, I think we you know, with the type of organization that we are, everyone's quite curious, so everybody wants to use it, everybody wants to try it, and we see a lot of people try a lot of things. It is important that the culture is there as well to, you know, put things a bit of independence, as you've said. That isn't easy. Not every company culture allows for that. Not every organization is open to test, you know, and failure is okay, and you move on quickly. So I think, just to come back to that question that you had, I think the culture has to be there, and that is difficult to create, but if it's there, it's very, very powerful. So giving the people the freedom to test, fail, say this didn't work, let's move on, and not kind of keep pushing it just because it's something that I've done. Yeah.
What other use cases are you using AI for at the moment? Like, what's maybe a couple of workflows that existed 12 to 24 months ago that have changed dramatically since you implemented AI? What sort of things are you using it for? What else?
I would say the biggest one, I mean, for my team, we work with new customers that come on board. So let's say you know, you're interested in purchasing software from us, you're using purchasing Notion, and through that sales cycle, essentially at some stage, you want to see what the product looks like, you want to do proof of concept, you want to really get your hands on it, and my team would come and help set that up, help set up the proof of concepts, demo the product. But as you can imagine, there's a huge amount of people that want to do that. So how do we decide which members of my team would get assigned to which customers? And that used to be a very manual process. It used to require a lot of my time, it used to require a lot of my manager's time, you know, and that we've completely turned that around, and a lot of that is done through AI decision making now. We can, of course, there's always humans involved, so we can override the AI if something isn't the way that we want it, but it saved me hours and hours every week, and the managers on my team, it saved them hours every week. And another example, I think that's quite strong from a customer of ours, recruiting in France. They looked at the meetings that they were running. They had in and around the big meetings had in around 25 people, and they managed to reduce that to 3 or 4 people by using meeting notes, transcribed with AI as well, and then having the agent look at those meeting notes and informing the people that didn't attend the meetings what was important to them, their job, what if there's any to-dos for them. So again, that saves hours and hours of time, and saving time is great. You know, for some people, that's all that's needed. They can get back home to their kids earlier. Super, they're happy. But for other people, it means they can be more productive and spend those hours on something that generates additional revenue, or generates other positive benefits for the organization. So there's 2 examples, but there's hundreds. You know, they're all over the place.
So I don't expect you to list all of those. We'll be here for probably about 5 or 6 hours, maybe longer. What stayed human for you then when you're talking about those two use cases? Help us understand what has stayed human. Where is the human decision maker still in the loop?
I mean, this is kind of my personal opinion to some extent, but I think when things get a little bit when you're trying to take risks and when any emotion comes into it, I think that's still not the realm of AI. So sometimes in my team we got to take big bets that don't make any sense on paper and mathematically don't make sense. You know, there's a very large company that we want to work with, but you know, looking at our CRM, it will say we've got a 1% chance of closing that deal. The AI will always go, nope, don't do that. So at that stage we override. We go, no, let's take that bet. Let's try our best. And the other thing that I really, not necessarily my team, but what I've seen at Notion and hiring, I think very much we try and keep humans in the loop as much as possible. I don't think we're ready for that, and I don't know if we will be in the near future. Yes, AI can help with, you know, tidying up your notes after having spoken to a candidate, but that process for me, at least, I think should very, you know, you're talking giving somebody a job or not. I think that still needs to be very much a human interaction and decision-making process. I'm not sure if that's the same for the rest with the people in. If you use AI, I'm sorry, but yeah, it's I'm sure there's tools that are fantastic in doing that. Yeah.
Oana and Sam, I'll come to you on that. Oana, you first. Yeah, does that resonate with you? Yeah, are you using keeping humans in the loop in similar areas? Are there any differentiating factors for you at Dexory? What's going on there?
Yeah, and I think 100% resonate on the hiring element. It's a very kind of big decision when you bring people onto your team, and obviously there's actually the point on the customer as well. There might be some very emotional reasons you want something in, rather than like all the flags kind of going red on paper. It doesn't mean we disregard them, and actually kind of goes back to what both Marc and Gordan was saying. Like there's a whole element of kind of using AI to capture that data and structure it in a way so that you can actually use it in very informed decisions and conversations you're having with the rest of the decision makers. But yeah, at the end of the day, the final kind of call will always kind of be on a human when it comes to hiring. And I think similarly for the commercial side of things, the final kind of decision on whether we work with a customer or not will also still kind of be in the hands of a human. But I think going back to your question and where have we kind of seen the biggest, let's say, adoption of AI tools, because there's multiples. Definitely on the commercial side, we've now adopted so much into that loop to just make our reps a lot more efficient, to help us kind of understand where we are, what the situation is on the revenue side of things, what is the health score of a customer. So there's a lot of kind of different elements there where, again, kind of AI as a co-pilot really kind of helps gather that information and structure it in a way so that you can, at a glance, really understand where you are. It doesn't mean that if something kind of seems a little bit off, you don't do kind of a bit more of an investigation and again kind of utilize various kind of bits of context that you might have, again, because sales is still a human to human relationship at the end of the day. But I think I just kind of facilitated and kind of transformed weeks of work in just literally a click of a button to capture all of that data and see it. I would say though that maybe kind of a slightly kind of different parallel here, which actually resonates a lot with what we do at Dexory as well, where we kind of capture real-time data to actually feed into a lot of different kind of AI tools. If the data that you put into whatever AI you have is bad, of course that the results are going to be all over the place. So before we, especially on the commercial side, before we implemented all the different tools we're using now, there was a big kind of exercise and education and training of our team to ensure that everything they're inputting into the CRM is done in the right way at the right time. And obviously as transparently as possible so that obviously you can kind of get the right results. So that kind of data accuracy and the temporality of it as well, so just ensuring it is the right time, is fundamental for all of this stuff to work. So I think that kind of took a little bit, but then once we were kind of quite comfortable with it, we kind of jumped in utilizing all the different tools.
Sam, I could see you nodding profusely during that. Does that resonate with you? Help us understand what's going on at Veed, other areas you're using AI, and yeah, when you keep humans in the loop, I imagine a lot of what Oana said also resonates with you.
Yeah, I think what everyone said resonated a lot with me. The way I see it and the way we maybe even changed our processes is we introduced very clear gates in which we make decisions as humans. So, for example, if we use AI coding agents to help us program a lot of the features that we want to ship, there will be a clear moment when we kind of review that feature as if it was built by humans to make sure that it's going out. And what we've noticed is that we had to build much more rigor around this, which also means that we introduced the same rigor with our human employees and teammates as well. I think what AI is super, super good at is getting to a point of getting something to a point that we can make a good decision about it way quicker than just humans can. So like Gordan said earlier, if we want to build a prototype, we can build it in a few days, show it to some real people, see how they interact, and then decide whether we want to continue or not. And the same goes for features. Like, for example, when people report issues with Veed, they show up in our Slack, and then we can send that to an AI agent to try to fix it. And then a human can actually check whether that's fixed or not. And we can decide whether to roll out that fix or not. So I think there's always a human in the loop, but a lot of the pre-work, a lot of the work that actually takes a lot of time is executed by AI right now.
You said there's often a moment when you bring a human into the loop to review a feature. Like when is that moment? When have you found is best to do that? Like, help us understand that thought process.
Yeah, so right before we want to release it, I think there's a clear moment. And also when we have tested a feature for the first time, there's a clear moment. And often right before we want to release it, we try out all the stuff that AI has added. And if we don't think it's good enough, we send it back. And the nice thing about the way many of these AI systems work is they learn from that. So we'll tell them, hey, actually, this works great, but it doesn't work well on mobile. And then the AI will make sure for every new change that it's proposing, it will take into account mobile as well. So this way, the AI gets better as well, and we're teaching it more and more. So it's becoming more accurate over time.
So I think something we spoke quite a lot about on a call the four of us had last week was using AI to surface internal information and help your understanding of what's actually going on in other departments and in other teams more than before. Sam, I'm going to stick with you on this because I thought you brought something really interesting up around a HR bot that you have that surfaces that information and just makes it much easier to understand what other people are thinking in the business and what's going on and align a lot more. Can you take us inside that?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that we did to kind of create more of a culture around AI in our company is we've asked every team to make a bot that can answer questions for them. So the data team has a data bot that looks at all of our data tooling. HR team has an HR bot, et cetera, et cetera. So, obviously, when we asked this to the teams, not everybody knew how to do it. So we had to do a little bit of education and show how you can build a bot like that. And the first iterations weren't perfect. But over time, these bots have become really, really useful. And they actually kind of reduce a lot of the busy work that a lot of these people have. Like in HR, HR people are really often bothered by very simple questions like how many holidays do we have and things like this. Is their office open in Christmas? And this is just something that these bots can answer so that the team can just keep doing their more important work. And one thing that worked really well for us is that we gave these bots names, because if they're called HR bot or something like that, there's kind of less of a connection with them and they become less of a mascot. But they got names. We made funny profile pictures for them, and that made them really come alive to a certain degrees, and that has worked really well for us.
What are their names?
I think the HR one is called Pixie, and she has like a pink girly image. So yeah, we all kind of have an association with Pixie now. Yeah.
Amazing. Oana, you said something similar that you're using tools such as Notion as well to bring up internal information and to make that process smoother as well. Can you help us understand that and talk a bit about that for us, please?
Yes, and I think what's interesting about us being a full stack company, there's so many different parts of our business. So we actually manufacture physical robots for warehouses. We have production lines, a stock team, a quality control team, a commissioning team, a deployment team for like taking robots to site and service and sales and everything that you could kind of probably think of on the software side as well that you'd have in a normal SaaS company. So the biggest kind of challenge for us, I think, when it comes to that level of company information is that it can come from so many different parts. And also there's so many other parts that need to be aware of all the different bits of information from the others. So that flow is very, very hard to maintain. So we do indeed kind of use Notion together with a few other tools to actually kind of aggregate as much company data as we can and kind of have that connected to multiple channels that we use. So then when anyone has any questions, obviously first port of call is kind of use that, find your answer. And then what we always kind of recommend, going back to that human in the loop point, is like if the answer is something quite complex or sensitive, do kind of check with an expert. So for instance, like if we need to answer any kind of information regarding, let's say, certification or safety for some of our customers around the robots, we kind of use Notion to collect that answer, put it in a good format, and then one of our autonomy experts just kind of has a quick skim through it, like, yeah, that's correct, it's aligned. Because again, kind of the implication of sending the wrong information can be quite big, which is kind of the element that we use to determine whether or not we need that expert to have a look at it, or we're quite comfortable for the team to use it as is. So that's kind of been super, super helpful in able to kind of get all these different teams to work with each other much better and much quicker. And I think to Sam's point, rather than kind of asking the same question over and over again to the same one or two people that obviously also have to develop software or deploy robots, now that kind of is easily captured and the team can self-serve.
We've had a couple of questions from the audience come in. Before I turn to those, Gordan, Marc, do you have anything to add on those points made by Sam and Oana?
I can jump in. So I think one of the key things that we're seeing is there's so many different use cases and opportunities to kind of use this, but the underlying element of all of this is the quality of the data. So we've done similar things to what Sam was describing, and I'm loving the idea of the kind of naming and trying not to get hooked into too many departmental stereotypes at the same time. But we found that in some areas where the data quality is really good, it's extremely effective. But in other places, if there's not an already defined kind of knowledge management system in place, sometimes there's the risk of obviously surfacing incorrect data. I think that's one of the things that as we've been experimenting, is trying to be more careful on. Is like, where can we fully trust the quality of the data so that we get the right answer, versus actually where is there some fundamental things that need to be fixed in order to make sure that the information is correctly surfaced. But it's one of these things where, from an enterprise IT perspective, constantly looking to bring new capabilities and, this kind of notion of, some are kind of co-pilots, but some are also a true kind of agentic flows to move things through. So yeah, I can fully resonate. And it sounds like there's some amazing things going on at the other organizations as well, which is good to hear.
Marc, do you do something similar?
Yeah, I was going to add to that. So I think I 100% agree that, the AI answer is something we use all over the place as well. HR is a big piece, but many different teams would use answering bots or agents. And we do absolutely give them also names and faces. Yeah, I think what Gordan said there, the data that underlies the answers has to be accurate. And I think that's something where, not to create this infernal loop here, but that's something where we use a lot of AI as well to support that. So having bots and agents go through the content every 2 months, every 3 months, and highlight potential issues of, for example, those certifications we've just talked about. The agent knows that expires every year. It can read the content that's in the knowledge database in our Notion instance and see what this team over here is working on updating from one ISO standard to the other, but have all these documents that reference the old ISO standard. So let me message somebody about that proactively. And that's when we go away from answering questions to, in that co-pilot scenario, if you want, to the agent scenario, where you give the agent, and I guess you can take that kind of visual quite far and say it is James Bond, the agent, going off, and you give the agent a broad mission and say, make sure that this type of documentation is up to date, and it will then independently do that. It will go and check in with headquarters every so often when it finds an issue, but go and make sure that as teams work on updating certifications, getting new certifications, it will highlight issues in documentation. It's not foolproof. You have to make sure your documentation is up to date, and there's simple things you can do, like having things expire every 3 months, having things expire every year, and they have to be re-verified before they go back into verified content into the knowledge database that the AI relies on to give answers. But even there, it can help itself, the AI, to stay up to date if you set the right process in place. But yeah, you need to have relatively clean data to start off with, otherwise, yeah, it's not gonna work.
I'm going to turn to a question from Andreas, which is Mark mentioned transcribing meeting notes and generating action points. I've had varying results with this using Gemini and Google Meets, where it misses details and occasionally outputs straight nonsense. I've had experiences where I've had my AI note taker invent people who weren't at the meeting, which makes things very confusing. Mark, because this question mentions you, I can get perspective from the others as well, but I'm going to start with you. What are your suggestions to make this a successful process and actually get tangible impact from that?
I mean, look, there's physical things you can do. Make sure the microphones are good quality, make sure that you connect, whichever AI tool it uses. If it's connected to whatever web conferencing tool you use, if it's a web conference, it knows who's speaking, so that helps. I mean, there is pretty good software out there that will integrate with whatever note-taking tool you use. The note-taking tools that we use within Notion obviously has a lot of background and context and content. So it will know what your company does, it will know what it works on, what you're working on, it will know what you personally working on, it will most likely know what the people that are in the meeting are working on as well. And if it's a customer, and there's CRM data on the customer, it will probably know the names of the people even on the call. So that all will help. Physical things, making sure the sound quality is good, that's really simple. And then using a tool that has background knowledge on what you are. So the more generic tools out there, maybe they don't have that context, especially if you're not using the professional version. So I think that can help quite a bit. I find them pretty good, but it's a personal thing as well. I know sometimes struggles with accents, maybe in different languages. We're not as far. It's a case as well. If it's not working for you today, try again in 6 months, because the technology is improving so quickly. Yeah.
Can I just add to that, Tom, if that's okay? Because I think there's a similar experience I've had personally when kind of using tools around taking meeting minutes and being part of that kind of process in the transcript. I had a similar thing where at first, when using the tool, I found it was some of the stuff that it came back with was laughable. It was completely missed the context of things. I didn't understand who people were. But actually, I found that the more that I'm then using the tool, there seems to be a learning in the background that gets to know the context of what I'm speaking about, understanding who people are. And I think to Mark's point as well, just being conscious of, if you speak clearly and slowly, it's a much better job. In the same way that if you had a new human or intern who turned up in the first couple of weeks, they're probably not going to know who everyone is, but then they soon learn. And I think it's almost that expectation around some of these tools is to make sure you're in the long run, the benefits are there, but to expect it, on the first or second go. And again, I learned this because I had that same expectation. Why doesn't it just work? But actually, over time, I found that they've been very effective. And I think patience is sometimes the virtue here in terms of letting the AI do what it does best, which is to learn and understand the context.
I think what I've found is that, like, post-meeting as well, you just kind of got to put the work in to go back through the notes, correct things. And the more you do that meeting after meeting, the better it gets at understanding who you're actually talking to. I'm conscious we have 25 minutes left. A few more questions have come in, so I will turn to them in a second. But yeah, Mark, go ahead.
There's a very quick point that I discovered a couple of weeks ago. I've actually been in meetings now where people directly speak to the AI note-taking tool as well. So that I've never seen that. It was a strange thing when it happened, but they literally went during the meeting for the note taker, and just like if a decision is super clear, then that works. So again, imagine you're like in a courtroom, if you can turn to the person taking the notes in court and saying, just make sure that that's all clear in the notes. So it's strange because you're talking to the computer, right? But it works. That's quite helpful.
It's a question from Saskia Robert that I want to pick up, which is, a lot of the examples we've gone through are quite operational, and she wants to know, how do you feel, or where do you feel AI and agents are useful on a more strategic level for you, obviously senior leaders at the companies you work for, like, have you used these tools for that more strategic thinking stuff? Sam, I can see you nodding, so I'll come to you first on that.
Yeah, for sure. So I think that, in the end, strategy is something like a couple of decisions that you make that you want to stick with for a very long time. I don't think you can completely outsource that to something that is AI or robotic, just because humans tend to stick longer to things that they've committed to themselves. That being said, I do think, at least at Veed, we are using a lot of AI to help us make these decisions and also to get our thoughts more clear. So, for example, for the planning for this year, our CEO locked himself in a cabin for a couple of days, made paper notes, and then gave all of that to an LLM, which then laid it out more. And then, we started doing a lot of research with LLMs on kind of conversations that we had with customers to figure out, what are the common themes here and things like that. So I think when it comes to strategy, I think an AI can help you kind of lay out the different options more and do better research so that you can make big strategic decisions. The actual decisions themselves, in my opinion, need to be made by humans because they are slightly more accountable than AI is.
So I think this is an important question to get everyone's perspective on. So I will go to Oana, Marc, and Gordan. Oana, you first.
Yeah, I think it depends what you think a strategic decision is. Like, would I don't know, completely change the, say, business model of the company based on AI? Probably not. But I think we touched a little bit on how we use AI within product development, and a very kind of interesting use cases within my team. I think about 3-4 months ago, where our kind of director of design kind of came in with like, hey, we're going to completely change the way we do prototypes for UI UX, and actually kind of go AI first, generate a lot of these small tweaks from the team, and then start putting them in front of customers. So for me, that is a strategic decision because you are allowing kind of these various tools to come in and dictate how your product might look, how your experience with your product might be like. So rather than having the human doing it first, passing it on to an AI, we kind of go AI first, and then the human kind of checks and ensures that it's not too far off from kind of what they had in mind. So in a way, I think, yeah, depending on the team, that is a pretty big decision, right? And then using that directly with like putting it for customers and users, getting feedback on it and iterating. Again, it's also a pretty kind of big commitment because once it's out there in front of a user, of course, it might change, but you can't kind of completely flip it around and start from scratch unless it's really, really bad. So I think, yeah, there's kind of different levels of, okay, what does a strategic decision mean for each one of us? So I think, yeah, the question is quite loaded. But from my perspective, that's definitely one that, yeah, we had to kind of really kind of embrace it and let go of the guardrails initially to be able to move a lot faster in the development of product altogether.
Marc, over to you.
Yeah, first of all, I guess indirectly, yeah, we did talk about a lot of operational things we can do. That does allow a lot more time for the humans to think about the big strategic decision. So indirectly, it supports it. But, very directly, I would say it can be quite creative, So just going and asking a very high level, broad question, and I did this last week. It's, within the tool, within Notion, I went, look at everything you have access to, my email, my Slack, my everything, and do SWOT analysis for me on where my team is and what we do. And it, half of it was really good, half of it was maybe not useful, but it helped me kind of get to the next step of like picking out and cherry picking out of that quite a few ideas that I then use to build a strategy for our next financial year. So it's been incredibly helpful in that. Again, not making any massive strategic decisions, but very helpful in saving me maybe a day or two. Maybe only have to lock myself in a cabin for 1 day instead of 3. I don't know. So that piece, that creativity piece, just getting me kickstarted on the right track. And it brought up 1 or 2 things I didn't think about. I might have come to that conclusion in the end, but it helped for sure in bringing up some opportunities that I hadn't thought of. So yeah, I think from the creative perspective, there's definitely a lot of leeway there to ask it very broad questions and just see what it comes up with. And it might be interesting. It's not going to necessarily, again, make that end decision, but yeah, I find that quite helpful.
Gordan.
No, thank you. And I think the idea of going and being locked away in a cabin sounds like I'm missing out from what everyone else is doing. It sounds lovely. No, I think for me it's definitely just an additional data point to use. And I think anyone who's ever kind of navigated at sea or in the air will know that to understand your position, without using GPS, you get as many fixes as you can to understand where you are. And I think all that these tools and kind of research agents etc allow us to do is just to get another perspective. And I certainly use that from my perspective. So there's colleagues and peers in the business who counsel the decisions that I make, as well as we've got, for example, like we've got a competitor insights team who can help us. But then using AI is it's just another data source to help inform the decision. But I think for me as a leader in the business, what I'm ultimately paid for is to make those decisions. And if I was to completely outsource that to an AI to do that, well, there's no need for my job, right? So I think it's that human judgment, though, I think is really important. So yeah, my perspective is it's just another piece of information. And it sounds like from the other panelists as well that it's helpful, but I think we're very much a long way away from that being the decision-making tool in its own right, because as we've been discussing, there's plenty of things that it gets wrong, context it gets wrong, but I've also found it can be quite helpful for bringing up insights that either validate something that something else has proved, or actually invalidating something as well, which is helpful.
Another question from Lionel here, which is, do you use off-the-shelf LLMs or open source LLMs installed on the private server? I think what they're getting at is, do you build your own tools, or do you buy off the shelf for the use cases you're looking for? Sam, you've obviously gone through the fact that you have built these internal bots. I'm sure we can get perspective from everyone else too, but I want to start with you. What are your thoughts on that, and what you should do there, and when you should maybe go for one over the other?
So I think when we use stuff for customers, so for our real product, like video generation AI and things like that, that's often when we build our own models and invest in the research. For internal usage, we mostly use off-the-shelf stuff. I think there's a lot of things you can do by trying out different models with different prompts. And as everybody has talked a lot about different data sources and different levels of quality of the data. So yeah, I would definitely go for that. I read in the question that there were maybe some concerns around privacy and security, and I completely agree. I think you need to be very clear on what data you share with these LLMs and what data you do not share. We have guidelines for that within the company that we adhere to, and we review that very regularly. But I think if you do that well, I think it makes a lot of sense to use existing stuff. And one of the big benefits of that is that those existing models get updated a lot. So for example, recently Claude released a new model, and we've seen a lot of our bots giving more accurate and better answers, which is just great to be able to ride that wave alongside the innovation.
Oana, I want to get your perspective on that too.
I think they're very much aligned with Sam's in the sense that we build a lot of different tools and agents for our customers on the back of the kind of proprietary data that we collect with our robots. Like we have, I don't know, almost 1 billion data points from inside warehouses only in the past kind of 12 months. So from that, obviously, there's some really interesting things we can do to extract things from that data and connect the dots and actually kind of really generate some interesting insights and actions for our customers. All of that is kind of built by us. And then also there's a variety of things we build in-house to support different tooling for the way we look after our robot fleet, or even our own kind of customer instances and databases to alert things to our own teams when they absolutely kind of need to jump in and sort a problem, or obviously kind of find the root cause of any issues and so on. So I think in that sense, there's quite a bit built in-house. But I think when it comes to team productivity, obviously there are people out there like Notion that I mentioned earlier that do it really well. So might as well just embrace what's out there and kind of enable our teams to move faster and find what they need, and obviously make those decisions that we were talking about. I think that there's always kind of that balance between, is there anything out there, and has somebody done this really well, then might as well just, why would we not embrace it? Because that's what we're trying to encourage our own customers to do, which is like, we're the experts in this field. Trust us with obviously your data and also your decisions, and let us come in. So we should absolutely do the same on our side, especially since I think most of us on the call have the privilege of being quite AI first when it comes to our organizations altogether.
Yeah, Gordan, how do you think about
Yeah, so very similar, which is, stuff that we do at an enterprise level. We're using traditional kind of mainstream models, but actually for the things that we deploy to our customers, that's actually part of our USP. So we've got a domain specific model that we built for accounting and accountancy, which, we've got 40 plus years of data, 2.5 million customers, who are transacting daily. I can't even quantify the number of data points that we've got. But as I said, that's our USP. If we were just regurgitating something that came from mainstream traditional models, actually there's no advantage, and anyone could do that. Our piece is the data points that we hold in the kind of domain specific knowledge that we've got to support our end customers, and we're seeing that as being a differentiator because there's plenty of examples in the market where folks are trying to get into the area that we are, but actually the mainstream models can't give anything like the level of accuracy. And it sounds like it's similar for the other panelists as well. That's part of the USP of being AI focused and the investment we've made over the last couple of years to make sure we built those domain specific models.
Marc, you are one of those tools that you can turn to. How do you think about it internally then?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely don't have our own and no plans of building our own foundational models and competing with the top 5 or 6 largest companies globally. That's not what we do. So we use those models. We use the big LLMs within our within Notion. We're quite agnostic, so our customers can select to let the tool select use the model that it thinks is best, or they can pick the model from the list of models that we support. So I think that's quite unique, and maybe not yet, but I think we're on the road of that LLM layer being quite commoditized. It can be accessed via APIs, it can be resold, can be white labeled, and that's how we use that. And we build an awful lot of intelligence on top of that, and we have very close relationship with the large LLM providers, and we work very closely with them to make sure that we get the best out of those models. But yeah, we're not competing with an LLM. I think the sheer volume of investment you'd have to do to go and build the data centers and train those models, that's not we're not there. I don't know, I don't want to speak for Notion there because I'm not 100% sure, but I don't believe there's any plans for us to go down that route. That's not what I've heard anyway so far. So yeah, we use the big models, and we use them very successfully within our tool. I think where our advantage comes in then is the fact that there is so much information for those customers that use Notion. There is so much information there. So we talked about this earlier, right? So having the context and being able to use all of the company's knowledge and that whole knowledge management piece, which is where Notion comes from originally, having that as a starting point makes the generic LLM something very different from being a generic LLM. So yeah, don't know if that answers the question, but
yeah, absolutely. So I want to stick with you for this next question, Marc, from Isla, which is, and we spoke about this last week as well, around how you go about thinking about staff use of AI, how forceful you want to be, and the question is, like, how do you manage AI implementation across different teams? Is it mandatory for daily tasks? Like, just what do you do? Because there will be some people who naturally take to this, some people who maybe need a bit of education on how to use it, and people who might not want to buy in at all. So how do you think about that when it comes to like the actual implementation across teams?
I think it starts with hiring the right people. That's probably a little bit of a cop-out answer, but I think we're quite lucky in the position that we the people that I work with are all incredibly interested and want to use it. So I haven't had to force anybody to use it. Now I speak to customers every day though, right? And it's different for different customers that they work with. Some customers are similar to us, and they might be in the IT space. They might even have some AI that they develop themselves, and they get it, and all the staff get it, and they run with it, and there's no need to force anything. But we also work with very traditional businesses, that are in parts and in industries that might be very heavily regulated, where it is very hard to use AI, and it needs to be fully supervised. It needs to be, if we're thinking of financial services, it might even have to be signed off by a central bank or a financial authority of some sort. So there's definitely customers that I work with and that we at Notion work with that where we have to come up with a strategy of how do we get staff to use this. And I think I don't remember if it was 97 or 98% or 94% of a survey of execs in the survey that we did that said we want to do this, we want to go there, and it was something like 27 or 28% that said we have a clear strategy of getting there. So I think I want to acknowledge as well that we're quite early on, so we don't have a full there isn't a blueprint of how do we implement this within every organization. But coming back to your question, sharing successes, I think, works if there is resistance. So having a nice database of, these are the success cases. This is having that maybe at company meetings, at newsletters or whatever way companies communicate internally. Having those quick successes shown is spreads good news within the company. And then I would say, coming back to the fact that we're moving away from it just being an LLM thing to it being an agent thing, I think even if users don't want to use it, they'll get that secondary benefit. We talked before about an HR bot or an operations bot or a finance bot answering questions. Only one user in the finance or HR team has to set that up, and the entire team benefits. So you mightn't even have to force it that much. And yeah, as users see benefits, they'll start using it. I'm quite confident. I don't think you can force people to use these tools. It's not going to work. You have to incentivize by showing how their peers are successful.
How has it worked where you've been before? You have quite a fresh perspective.
Yeah.
In terms of when you joined Notion, you were able to come in and see things, I guess, from a very fresh point of view, compared to maybe some colleagues who've been there for longer. Help us understand like the approach you maybe took in terms of understanding where this was being used, where staff maybe needed a bit more education, and that sort of thing.
I think I was being educated, honestly. My previous role, I worked for Adobe before for many years, and I think Adobe was very much focused on Gen AI, so it was generating, really slick implementations within Photoshop, for example, of course. But that was very different. That's very different. I think at Notion, I was the one that had to be trained and schooled of how to use it, and it was quite eye-opening. I think I was quite confident that I know what AI does, and I was quite impressed with its ability to get answers, but I wasn't ready for was how integrated it was into other tools as well. So the fact that you can ping something on Slack and a Notion custom agent will come back with an answer. So how widespread it was and how integrated it was across the entire tool stack that we use internally. That's I think what I was schooled on. So I might take myself there as a person that had to learn, as opposed to my team, which have been incredibly helpful in teaching me. Yeah.
Oana, I'm going to come to you next, and this is something same question in terms of managing implementation. And you mentioned something at the start of the call around letting go, like when it comes to that decision-making process and maybe being less involved than before. Help us understand how important that is as a leader of a team who's going to set the example of how to use these tools to the rest of the company.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the most important thing. And I think Marc touched on it a little bit, is the more examples you can give and set, then obviously that's how you set the tone and the culture of the entire business. So 100% you have to do it yourself as a leader in a business in order to then expect your team to do the same. But I think there's also a big element in making sure that you have the right people, the right level of curiosity, because for the type of business that we can't really afford not to embrace tools that can make us more productive, that can make us obviously more efficient in everything that we're doing. So automatically, if the team isn't always thinking, how can I be better? How can I be faster? How can I deliver better results? Then it probably means that culturally you haven't made the right decision in that hire in the first place. I think Marc touched on it a little bit on that as well. So it's not about enforcing, it's about like ensuring that you have the right type of mindset that would make you, whether it's AI, whether it's something else, but always kind of have this mentality of like there must be better ways in which I could do something, like what's out there, like how can I keep up to date with everything else out in the world that can enable me to do my job better. So I think as long as that kind of sentiment is there, then I don't think we were ever going to have pushback on some of the tools that we bring in, because it should kind of meet every individual's goal anyway.
Yeah, Sam, how do you think about that?
I think from my perspective, I think the I spoke to a lot of people that were kind of hesitant, and I feel like it comes down to kind of two reasons. One is they're afraid to lose their job. So I think that's something as a leader, we need to assure our staff that that's not why we're implementing AI. We're not trying to replace anyone. We're trying to get more productive and more efficient as an organization. And I think the second reason that some people are hesitant is because they try stuff out and they don't get the results they want. AI is not magic. It's not like you type in 4 words in ChatGPT and it will fix all of your problems. So yeah, what we've tried to do is we've seen in the organizations that there are a couple of people that are super like evangelistic and excited, and we try to buddy them up with people that are a little bit more hesitant and kind of see, what they create together. That has worked really well for us. And I think the other thing we've been doing is as leaders, we are experimenting actively with AI and showing that experimentation. So for example, I will have my slides designs generated by AI, which then inspires a lot of people to kind of try things for themselves. And it kind of creates this environment of experimentation, which I think is really important when going through such a big paradigm shift.
Yeah, Gordan, round that question off for us.
Yeah, so I don't think AI is any different to any other technology adoption. I think we'll see the same adoption curve that we see on a lot of things. And what we found at the organization is because we're a progressive engineering focused organization, embracing of these tools by our engineers hasn't taken any cajoling or convincing. I think in the kind of wider population, it is, as some of the other panelists have said, kind of show and tell. And in general, like we talk about AI in almost everything that we do in terms of leadership communications, engagement sessions and day to day. So there's almost an expectation that lands there anyway. But I think the important thing, which I think Marc brought up earlier, is actually when we speak to our end customers, we must remember that they're not always as AI literate as we are as an organization, or even thinking about it in the same way. If we're speaking to someone who's a mechanic or a florist, or especially people who do much more hands-on kind of jobs, actually they just see technology in the round. And the feedback that I've had personally is they're kind of not bothered whether it's AI or not. They're bothered about, does it solve a problem for them? And if it does, absolutely fantastic. If it doesn't, then they tend not to be interested. So yeah, it's a real spectrum.
So we have a few minutes left. I want to finish with a couple of quick round the room, quick fire questions. Sticking on implementation for one, if you were entering a new company to lead on AI implementation, what's the one role that is an absolute must, Sam?
Oh, I actually don't think there's a specific role. I think one thing that I would do is I would start an AI teaching or AI school channel on whatever messaging app you're using with the company, and allow everyone to drop in ideas, to drop in things they see on social media, clips, whatever, YouTube videos on how to use AI, because that really sparks that conversation.
Gordan.
To quote a video from Steve Ballmer many years ago, developers. They're the group who's important.
Marc.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think there is. It's quite broad, right? The roles that you need aren't necessarily individual people. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer really. That's to your question, but it's a cop out one. And Ken, I think you got to hire the right people that are curious. So it's the curiosity and the willingness to experiment, because it's just new. That's more important than a title, I would say.
And Oana.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Sam, because it's not about like having an external person outside of each of the different teams to come in and tell the teams how they use AI. It's getting every team to understand what the opportunity is for AI within their team, and they're going to be the experts of that. Which is like, yeah, we're noticing a lot. Like we have an AI team in the development side, but they work with all the different teams as well, because you can't just do it in a silo. So I think as a role, or maybe as a function, it's exactly the element around kind of training and development, and getting every team to think about that, figure out where they can find the latest information, what is available in their area, and then obviously kind of adopting that in. And that adoption, maybe you kind of need an input from kind of legal compliance, an element of like, okay, what data can you use in this and what not, right? But the most important thing is kind of finding ways to ensure that every single part of the organization is thinking AI first, rather than somebody coming in and saying, okay, this is what we're going to implement and go ahead and deal with it.
Amazing. And once more around the room very quickly, what's one AI capability you wish you had that you currently don't, Sam? Be as creative as you want.
that's a hard one, but I think I'd love to be in multiple places at the same time. Like I think maybe I need to talk to Oana to build me some robots, but like AI can help me make a lot of stuff, but it can't do my groceries yet. It can't clean my bed, everything. So I'd love that for that to see that in the future.
Gordan.
I think some magic to be able to take the elements that are in my wife's family paper diary and make sure that overlaps correctly with my professional commitments. That's something that AI can't do today.
And Marc.
I like that one. That's a pretty good one. I was going to actually say about around scheduling, but internally at the organization, at the company, I think that'd be really interesting to see how many useless or not very useful meetings we can skip, and really, yeah, enabling people to attend those meetings and that they need to. So I guess more time. I don't know if that qualifies, but yeah, somehow generate more time.
And Oana, wrap us up, please.
But funnily enough, that's exactly what I had in mind when you asked the question. So I think that kind of thread of time is probably quite important for all of us. But I think connected to it is an element of better prioritization, which there's so many tools out there that obviously say they do that. And I think that there's a lot of elements within them that allow it to do it. But I think that element of emotional and personal decision is still in there, and we just don't want to let that go in a way. So automatically that makes it very hard for those tools to operate efficiently.
Amazing. And that, yeah, just about wraps us up for the talks. Thank you to everyone who joined, and thank you to our partner, Notion, alongside Marc, Gordan, Sam, and Oana. It's been a pleasure hosting you. If you want to find more information on the next Sifted Talks, which will all be all about the post-product market fit playbook, the link for that is in the chat. Thank you to everyone again. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.